Don't be racist. I am a building.
Welcome to a solo Rust waste of fucking time. The YouTube video essay equivalent of a shitpost. Don't say you haven't been warned. We start on the beach, but actually we start on the loading screen leading to the menu where we select the server and enter another loading screen. I'm not trying to say these loading times are egregious. I mean, I'm no chef, so who am I to say whether you can serve prefabs cold, but I just want to give people an accurate idea of what playing Rust is like. Maybe on your fancy, expensive, Beefy Queefy PC, the load times are nothing, but for me with my moderately priced PC that's just good enough to not be potato, the load times for Rust are quite long, and if you haven't played Rust but have played GTA 5, I would say the load times are comparable. I don't mind sitting through the long load times since, like GTA 5, it's a big seamless open world that I'm looking to spend several hours at a time in. However, being an adult, I don't often get to spend several hours at a time without interruption from either my wife or my puppy. Of course, I love them more than anything in the world, so I welcome the interruptions, but Rust is not a game that plays well with sudden life intrusions. See, Rust is a PvP survival game where routinely being killed and having all of your stuff stolen is par for the course. It obviously can't be paused, so the only thing you can do if you need to step away is either give up and let whatever happens happen, or get yourself into a nice cozy base and hope nobody shows up with explosives in the meantime. This happened almost constantly while I tried playing this game during the day, so I'd end up having to play at night when my family went to bed. This was nice, I was able to make some progress and it was a generally pretty chill time. I had my mic on and recording since there is voice chat, but I didn't really end up talking to anyone, so all it really did was bloat the file size of my footage. I still had to jump in for a brief stint during most days because, at least when you're playing on official vanilla servers, Rust is a demanding game on your free time. Bases require materials for upkeep over time or else they begin to decay. For the base design I had in mind, I was going to need a lot of materials at a constant rate to keep things standing. And I had grand ambitions for this base, but ultimately I had to abandon most of them because the time and hard drive space it would take to play and record everything I had in mind would simply not be feasible. I started up Rust 15 times over the course of 5 days. I told you I was interrupted a lot during the daytime. In fact, at just this point in writing the script, I've already been interrupted 4 times. No, make that 5. And wound up having to uninstall almost every game on my PC to make just enough room to record me putting the finishing touches on my base. All that is to say that I've sat through a lot of loading over a handful of days, and I decided to record all of it so I could share it all with you. Welcome to the entire video. Okay, no, we're gonna get to the actual game now, but I do want to see how many of these load times we can get through during the course of this video, so I've edited together just the loading sequences from each of my play sessions. I've removed menu navigation, but I include all loading from the time I boot up the game to the moment I join the server. I'm gonna let this play out in the corner during the entirety of this video with a little counter next to it to show you which loading sequence we're on. Like I said, I played on an official vanilla server for the standard experience. There are other server types which can alter the focus of the experience, but even when I'm focusing on a certain aspect of the game like base building rather than PvP like I am in this video, I like the way the PvP side of the game affects everything else. I don't have that many hours in Rust, and ultimately I'm just not that good at this game, so don't expect an action-packed adventure here. What PvP there is here generally lasts only seconds. This is why I opted for a low-pop server. I was already going to start without blueprints, the things that allow you to make stuff at workbenches, making this whole journey just that much more of a difficult grind. When I came up with this base idea, I was playing on a server where I had unlocked all blueprints. Setting up this kind of base when you can build absolutely anything you need along the way is so much easier. I wasn't sure if I could even pull this off without blueprints, but that added layer of challenge was so much more interesting to me. So that brings us back to the beach, where we wake up and get to looting a box, and... oh. Right, so this game has full nudity. It can be censored in-game using pixelation or by slapping undies on everyone. I usually play without censorship because the nudity doesn't bother me and because this game has premium underwear that cost way too fucking much, which players can wear, but when I was starting out I couldn't tell the difference between some of the premium underwear and actual items of clothing that can be stolen off a dead body. Playing with nudity on just made it easier to tell who was naked and who wasn't, especially at long distances. For this video I played with the underwear option only because YouTube would probably prefer it that way, or else I would need to manually censor the whole video. As you can see, I am covering the female nipples with male nipples. But back to looting. As a solo who plays like a scared rabbit, it's usually important to try to stay under the radar. I'll often look for some out-of-the-way spot where most people will never find me and build something that hopefully doesn't attract too much attention, but for this new innovative base design I came up with, I need to really put it to the test by building somewhere that was likely to be a high-traffic area. Building near the middle of the map next to a monument and near several others seemed like the way to go. I just had to get there. I began the long trek to Bandit Camp, one of the safe zones on the map where I could rest before heading north to check out the area between the dome, water treatment plant, and another safe zone, the outpost. Along the way, I picked up some food at the river, gathered a little collection of junk, and plopped down sleeping bags so I could respawn nearby if I died. Upon reaching Bandit Camp, I gambled what little scrap I had away and then headed off into the wilderness, never to be seen again. I then sort of just wandered around looking for a good spot to build. Once I found it, I began building. Once I had finished stage 1 of the build, I needed to make a furnace, which required a little bit of stone and wood, and also some low-grade fuel, something I could make with cloth and animal fat. So I killed myself and harvested my own flesh to see how much fuel I could get. A decent little bit, but not enough for a furnace. The longer you live, the more your body gives upon death. On top of that, every time you respawn, there is a timer on nearby bags that temporarily prevents you from respawning again. If I were to kill myself again, I'd have to wait several minutes to respawn, and then I'd get a fraction of the animal fat for my efforts. So this isn't really something to do repeatedly. To get the rest of the fuel, I just had to go out and do some hunting. I was also going to need food, so when I came across a bear and managed to kill it before it got away, I was set. I went home and crafted up the furnace and then got to work smelting metal. While the metal was smelting, I went out to collect more stone to fortify my base from any pyromaniacs that may come my way. After a bit of farming, I was able to finish converting my base to stone and replacing my front door with a metal one. Now, if somebody wanted in, they'd have to bring explosives. Next, it was time to fill in the extra layer of protection I had built around my core. Back to the grind.
A chance. 頑張れ、そう頑張れ、諦めないで。口笛吹きさ、歩き出そうよ、going now.
And by nightfall, I had my core fully honeycombed and even had 3 metal doors. I decided to take a little break with a trip over to the outpost where I would recycle some things and be stalked by this weirdo trying to add me to his team. I'm pretty sure this is a trap. He's trying to follow me home so he can raid me. In general, you shouldn't trust anyone in Rust. I'll just sit and wait until he goes away. Finally able to make my way home without any unwanted guests, I just kept up farming for materials. This base was going to take a lot of farming for a solo stuck using primitive tools. The next thing I really needed to do was get down a tier 1 workbench, and luckily for me, I noticed the base not too far from mine had been raided and was now decaying. Scooped up the workbench and took it straight home. I also found a horse, fed it human meat, took its poop, put it in a box. No, wrong channel, fuck off! So I decided to check out the water treatment plant and see what I could scrounge up. The area was pretty quiet, so I felt fairly safe to wander and gather up components that might come in handy. I even did a little bit of farming on my way back home. I got my random assortment of shit safely stashed away, including a second small water catcher. You know, to go with the first one we got. You remember that. It was a big moment for all of us. After that, it was back to the farming grind. My first death at the hands of another player. I respawned back in my base and stayed quiet. I didn't want this person knowing where I lived, so I just waited. After a few gunshots, I heard him ride off on my horse. This was fine, I had no real need for the horse. I don't really like riding horses in this game. They're not the easiest to maneuver, and their loud hooves draw attention. I honestly have more luck staying alive, ducking and weaving while on foot than trying to ride away on a horse. For me, horses are poop machines and maybe a food source in desperate times. So I make a research table, which will allow me to create blueprints out of any craftable item I put in. I can then learn that blueprint even if it's way down the tech tree. Blueprints can also be used in autocrafters, which I generally use to automatically create gunpowder and meds, but you won't be seeing any of that in this video. We're keeping things primitive for this adventure. Oh, I also made a nail gun and a bunch of nails. I don't think I ever actually used this thing. Keeping things simple when venturing out means that anyone who comes across you is less likely to look at you as a target. Even if they kill you, if all you have is primitive tools and minimal clothing, they're likely to leave your body unlooted and show no interest in your base. Even though the nail gun is a useful gun to pair with a bow and arrow, I opted for bow and arrow only as it would generally serve my purposes of hunting for meat while not looking like a threat to other players. I decided to head outside and place one of my small water catchers before heading up to the roof to build a second floor. This floor, however, is simply going to serve the same purpose as the honeycomb, being empty space filled with walls and ceilings to slow down anyone with explosives coming in through the top. I think this is called pancaking, and there are much more advanced techniques for building ultra-thin layers, but we're keeping things simple. Shortly after starting on the pancake layers, I decided to take a break and see if I can get a nearby crate that appeared at the water treatment plant. Once activated, it takes 15 minutes for the crate to open, so there's nothing to do but wait and try to defend the crate from other players. All I have is a bow and arrow, so I'm simply hiding and hoping nobody else shows up. The sun sets and the place is all quiet, but it's not too long after dark that I hear someone snooping around. I see their lights as they scout out the area, but they don't come around the corner and find me. It goes quiet, and it's too dark to see anything other than the lights on the crate. They've settled in and are waiting for their chance at the crate, meaning my chances of getting out with the loot is next to nothing. Still, I decide to simply wait and see if I can get lucky. I can't. Coming back to the game the next day, I decided to make a sign to let people know that I'm friendly. I placed the sign on the water catcher, filled up my water tank, and headed out to gather materials for the base's upkeep, as well as berries and seeds for a farm I had planned. Seeing another crate, I decided to head over and assess the situation. However, when I get over there, I hear other players and decide to just grab some stuff out of a nearby box and head home. Coming up the hill towards my base, I hear what sounds like another player jumping around. Unfortunately, I'm right, and there are two players running right up to my base. Trying to back away slowly, hoping they don't see me, but it's too late. I managed to get a headshot on one guy, but that's all I'm able to do before I'm killed. Respawning outside my base, I head back to check on my body. Thankfully, apart from the gun I just acquired, they left most of what little loot I had on me. I heard them drinking from my water catcher with the friendly sign on it, and then this happened.
Hey, bro.
Hey.
Hi.
Oh, thank you. See? Being nice isn't going to make you rich, but it does inspire people to leave you some of your belongings after they murder you. Soon after that, I decided to take a trip to Outpost to recycle some junk. There's a recycler and water treatment plant that's more efficient, resulting in more scrap and materials from recycling, but I like the safety of Outpost, so I'll take the hit. Oh hey, I brought the nail gun. Once I'm home, I use my scrap to unlock some blueprints so I can get to work on my farm. Eventually. Need to finish the roof first. After cooking up enough metal fragments, I could make my core and even a pancake layer above fully metal, but for now I would leave the outer shell stone. Logging on again later, I quickly got to gathering materials. Here's a moment that perfectly sums up playing Rust solo. So I went back out and started gathering the materials all over again. Then I logged off. Upon logging back in later that night, probably around 2 in the morning, I was immediately greeted by the sounds of nearby explosions. I sat quietly in my base, waiting for the helicopter to fly away and the area to quiet down. After a while, I did what I always do at 2 in the morning and stripped naked before running next door to greet my new neighbors. They also had a sign outside to let people know they were friendly. They mostly just quietly watched as I wandered around outside their base, unsure of what to do. I don't know if this was a base they had raided or what, but I eventually went in and cleaned out the scraps. They didn't seem to mind, and eventually I headed home. For some reason, I decided to run to a base with a vending machine advertising itself as walk-up friendly to see if I could buy a computer station. I had no need for a computer station, I just wanted one. Then it was back to the materials grind, for it was time for Phase 2, the first major base expansion. I got the foundation down. The bear kept chasing me. They were auspicious times. Then some fuckleberry shot me while I was putting up walls. I managed to get inside and shut the doors before he got to me, so I didn't lose anything, but I still feel I am owed a formal written apology. So in Season 1 of Riverdale, Betty investigates a murder and finds out that the murdered boy is her cousin who was murdered by her uncle. Then her uncle is found dead hanging in a barn. In Season 2, there's a serial killer on the loose and Betty investigates and in the process finds her long-lost half-brother who ends up creeping everyone out, and then it turns out he isn't actually her half-brother, but he says he killed her half-brother, but then it turns out the serial killer is Betty's dad. In Season 3, Betty's real half-brother shows up alive and in the FBI hunting serial killers, and they investigate a new serial killer called the Gargoyle King, who turns out to be multiple serial killers, at one point in the 80s being Betty's dad, and now in modern times it's the false half-brother from Season 2 and Betty's aunt, who turns out to have also killed the uncle back in Season 1. They go to jail and the real half-brother visits the false half-brother in jail, and it turns out that they're in love. In Season 4, Betty goes to FBI class but then drops out when she finds out she has a serial killer gene. She blacks out at a party and Jughead winds up dead, so now she has to investigate who the murderer is, and she's the prime suspect. But it turns out that Jughead isn't dead and it was all a trick so Betty could figure out the real attempted murderer, which are some douchey rich kids. But somewhere along the way we find out that Betty's FBI half-brother is also a serial killer who kills serial killers except for a serial killer's boyfriend who he moves in with. In Season 5, we jump ahead 7 years and Betty is now in the FBI hunting serial killers, but also being stalked by a serial killer who's completely unrelated to the other serial killers Betty is looking for when her prostitute sister disappears on a highway. The sister turns out to have been murdered by a gang of serial killer hillbillies that also turn out to be Betty's distant cousins. In Season 6, everyone gets superpowers, and Betty's superpower is that she can see the auras of serial killers. And oh no, it looks like her nephew might be a serial killer. In Season 7, a meteor causes the entire show to reboot, and now everyone is back in high school again, but it's the 50s where Betty is just bisexual and horny. Her first fuck time is interrupted by a serial killer. What this means is that there are effectively two bases side by side, so if raiders want to make their way in, they won't know which side is my core. It's not too difficult to explode their way into the side that holds basically nothing, but doing so isn't going to get them anywhere closer to getting inside my core, which will be relatively expensive to get into no matter which angle they tackle it from. Normally, one would want external bases for additional protection. The extra tool cupboards, which are the things you need to control a base, can provide overlapping protection and keep raiders from fully taking over during a raid. But I actually don't want to deter people from checking out my base. I'm actually kind of hoping someone will try to raid it so I can see if this base design has any merit. Smelting metal in a standard furnace burns a lot of wood and creates a lot of ash. I could hold on to the ash as it can be mixed with sulfur to create gunpowder, but at this point I've grown fond of the idea of just sticking with a bow and arrow for the whole wipe and trying to get by on friendliness. I decided to set a box outside to put my spare ash in, along with a sign to let people know that it's there for them. Quick aside, wipe just refers to the fact that the server wipes away all non-tech tree progress and generates a new map at set intervals. I do a bit more scavenging for materials and components, as well as a run over to Outpost to do a bit of scrap handling. Then it's time to set up some of what I'll need to start my indoor farm. I don't know what it is, but setting up electrical and plumbing in this game is one of my favorite things to do. It's just satisfying, get everything working and making it look somewhat neat and functional while you do so. Trying to play with little to no PvP can be a fun little challenge, as you generally try not to step on anyone's toes or draw attention to yourself, but it can get a bit repetitive as you constantly head out to gather resources and then back inside to store them away for a rainy day, which are some of the best days in Rust. The atmosphere in this game is top notch, and days like this make even the most bare bones utilitarian base feel extra cozy. I then planted and watered some hemp to test my farming setup. There's a whole genetic manipulation through cloning thing in Rust that I've read about but never actually tried. You can get a decent yield from just planting whatever you have and letting shit happen, but I was flirting with the idea of creating a tea shop to get scrap for blueprints, and that would definitely benefit from having what's called god clones of the appropriate seeds. Then I noticed someone else is selling god clones, so I headed to Outpost to pay for the privilege of not needing to learn how to do something for myself. I got the clones home safely and then shoved them in a box and never used them for the rest of the wipe. In preparation for the farm I'll inevitably abandon, I added 2 more water catchers outside and hooked them up to the inside so I can hoard massive amounts of a resource I'll only need a fraction of. Then it was on to preparation for the final phase of the base. Oh shit, my neighbors got raided. Oh fuck, that sucks. Those guys were cool. We said hi to each other a few times. One of them gave me a gun once, but I can't find the footage. Sad days. Wonder if I can take their shit. No, this stuff is firmly locked down. See, that's the power of good externals. Unfortunately, it didn't matter. These guys never came back, and eventually the base and the externals all crumbled away. Is penis. It got the wooden shaft and the
balls of steel.
It even has a sprinkler on the front for parties. It actually got raided when I left it at like 99% complete. Came back on later and everything seemed fine, but a few doors and suddenly... yeah. They climbed up through the open window at the head, exploded their way into the door in the back, followed by the 2 doors leading to each level of the left ball. Unfortunately for them, there was another door to get down to the first floor, and blowing that up also destroyed the ladder back up to the second floor. They found nothing of interest in this room, so they exploded their way back out. At this point, they were confronted by many more doors leading into the core, and must not have had the boom to keep going, so they simply exploded the front door and left. Seems whoever it was also didn't have ladders to get back up to the second floor, and was probably working alone, since with multiple players you could boost off each other to get everyone except one guy back up to the second floor. As long as the player that was left behind gave everything important he was carrying to his teammates, he could simply F1 kill and respawn somewhere else, no problem. So, weirdly enough, I think this design might be kind of effective. It's one I would actually love to revisit in the future when I've got more blueprints at the ready and I can do everything I had originally planned. For a solo just starting out, the material cost on upkeep is a little intense, but I think for a solo further along the tech tree, the upkeep shouldn't be a problem. And that's basically where I left things. I did grab that gun my friendly neighbors gave to me that one time and go out to see if I could get a crate at water treatment plant. I'll show you how that went, and in the meantime, I'd just like to say thank you for checking out this stupid video. If you want more nonsense, you should subscribe and stick around. I'm also not opposed to likes, those are pretty nice, but my favorite is comments. I read every single one and I reply to most. Sometimes if I'm busy, I'll just read and like a comment without reply, and that's usually because you've summed it up perfectly and there's not really anything for me to add. But in general, I like to try to reply. So yeah, let me know what you think about Rust, about the video. Let me know if you'd want to see more videos about Rust, or if there's another game you'd like to see me try. Comments praising what you liked about the video are great, of course, but don't be shy about criticizing what you don't like. My ego is not fragile, and I don't shy away from disagreements. Learning to see the world through different perspectives is key to truly understanding it. Usually, after the credits, I put a little teaser for the next video in the form of a hint of what it's going to be about, but for this one I'm just going to flat out say that the next video is going to be my very first time playing Fallout New Vegas. I don't know how to hint at the game without giving it away, and I'm just too excited anyway. I love Fallout, but I've never actually played New Vegas. So subscribe and then wait a little bit, but hopefully not too long, because I want to get a lot more videos out this year than I did last year, but I also don't have the Fallout video finished already like I had this video finished already by the time I released the last video. Okay, love you, bye!